Like to call the IT committee meeting for the month of April to order. First order of business, pardon me?
Together, I think. Sorry.
Right, well, I needed to get everybody to send. People don't pay much attention to me, so that's the only way I can do it. First order of business is to accept the minutes. Jay and Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. First order of business is going to be cybersecurity report.
So we have the cybersecurity report for this month, that you folks all should have. I should have glasses on so I can actually see it. Helpful these days. We've added a new statistic that Ryan had shared at the last meeting, but we're kind of changing it up a little, so it still may look a little bit different next month. But right down on the bottom, the phishing statistics. So that's a new one. I don't know if anyone has any questions on this report at all.
What does the statistic 30% mean?
On the bottom of the phishing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what it is we train to do cybersecurity training, and this is how we test the training. So every month there are phishing emails that are randomly distributed throughout the county throughout the month. And when people report them, it's a good thing and helps us. And when people click on them, it's not a good thing. And that's what the percentage represents.
Okay.
So we're actually not doing bad at all, 5%, for the month of March. But even 20 clicks are 20 opportunities that somebody could have potentially gotten into the environment. So we just like to draw attention, and then also to the training, because the training really is the key, is building out our human firewall and training people. Because not only do they help protect the county when they're here at work, but then they can help protect themselves in their personal life as well. Because it's so bad out there these days that these are skills that can be applied across the board.
Terry, when you see it says the recipients of the phishing, right?
Yeah.
Are they basically the same ones every time, or is it so random that?
No, every user in the county will get an email every month. They don't all come on the same day. They don't all come in the same week. They randomly get distributed throughout the month, just to make it so that it is more fair for everybody. We're not trying to trick people. I want to make sure that that's clear. We're trying to help and to.
So these are yours actually, that you're sending out to test us.
We have a platform that does send it out.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought, now, how about the phishing that's coming from the fishermen?
Oh, outside, that's reflected in the inbound mail overview. So you guys don't have the color versions in front of you, but the big part on the bottom is green, and that's all good received email. But then up above, you have phishing, which is it's in a little orangey color. It's actually the next light one above the green one. So the next one up, those are phishing. Then you have malware, spam, and what's called edge protection, which are very bad things that are blocked before they even get in.
Okay. Any questions on the security report? Ready to move on?
Oh, Bob.
As you catch and reject the phishing things, and you just use them because we're all familiar with what that is.
Yep.
As you catch them and reject them, does the number seem to go down, or does it tend to stay about the same? It looks like you've got a bit of a decline here.
Yeah, so it will go back up again. It just depends how active the hackers are during that month.
Okay, so our diligence isn't discouraging.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
I don't think it ever will. I think they'll be around for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to protect
I just
against
wondered
for all
if
those though.
we were getting good at catching it, would that make them go somewhere else?
Yeah, I wish I could say it would, but these are things that are actually caught by our spam filter that are coming in
Okay.
and being flagged.
I know that in my office, I've seen an increase in incidents, but thanks to the training, we're getting better at identifying.
Yeah, there's a huge increase on my computer, and that, Germans.
The ones that we've reported have turned out to be worth reporting, so the training is working.
Yeah, reporting is always really great, using that fish alert button, because then that allows us to block those emails. And then also we can look and see who else in the county might have received that and warn them and let them know not to open it. So it definitely, if you see something, report it. And if you do report, like one of the phishing campaign emails, it'll tell you and give you a gold star essentially, say, great job. If we were to click on one of these, for example, so the people that did click on them, we use that as a training opportunity. So it'll tell you, what it is, and it'll show you all the things to look at to help improve for next time. So it really is about the training.
Ryan's face pops up and says, gotcha.
Just say bad job.
No.
You'll compromise the entire county system. So just.
Oh, you clicked on one?
No, I No, I did not.
Just
Got
kidding.
no start. So does it track repeat offenders on your tests?
It does, and eventually we'll have some other training for them. So that's the next phase of this, is to do some more training.
Yes, for your computer.
You can stay after.
So sort of like people, that drive a car and get repeat accidents or a lot of tickets, there might be a suspension.
Jay, if you get anything, oh, you don't open it.
Yeah, and then the hot topic of current events, I'd also, if you haven't heard about that yet, I would encourage you to take a look at it. On the electronic version that was emailed to y'all, there is a link. So I thought
Yeah.
we thought that was interesting.
Any other questions on the report? Shall we go to project report?
Okay. For the project reports, I have added some new projects on there up toward the top. Of note, we have the website redesign that's going through. That doesn't change the content on the website. It's more of a facelift than anything. So that'll be something I'll be pulling others into to make sure that we're presenting the image for the county that we want to. So that's a project we just are kicking off, looking at all the options for that. We have some new software going in. The DPW software is one you folks were aware of. I know from recent conversation, and then the civil software over in the sheriff's office. So we're moving forward on those. I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of the other projects on there.
Mr. Hinkie?
When you do the firewall replacement.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have any kind of a county shutdown for an hour or something to make that switch, or?
We should not. It'll be, so we're staging the firewalls and getting them all pre-staged. And so the firewalls, we have two of them in a high availability. So when one goes down, the other takes over. And so there may be an after hours brief time, but it shouldn't be more than maybe 5 minutes to shut down the old and bring the new online. Shouldn't be long. And we'll be advertising the maintenance. We always work closely, especially with public safety in the sheriff's office, so it affects most.
All the dispatchers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we work closely with them through all of those things.
Even 5 minutes would be something that falls up in that 5 minutes.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have periodic maintenance, even the maintenance on their servers that we schedule monthly to work with them, so.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on that one?
I have one. What is UPS LEC?
So-
UPS replacement.
Yep, so that's battery backup units or uninterruptible power supplies over at the LEC. So we've got them installed, but doing much over in the jail section over there just requires a lot of extra work and a lot of extra permission, if you will. So we're right now just waiting on the electricians to finish up with another outlet to get them all connected.
And where's building C?
That's courthouse.
Courthouse.
Well, what's the expansion? I wasn't aware of expansion over there.
It's wiring. So it's not expansion per se, but it's expansion of our wiring. So we're running new fibers between the buildings to improve the performance over there, and then new wiring to replace very, very old wiring that goes into the offices
Okay,
to bring them so they will have the speed that we all have over here.
it's just for building C for expansion. We had a building
Yeah.
project over there.
Yeah, so it's expansion in terms of connectivity. So we have all the cameras online, and so they're able to add more because we're full. Everything has been full over there until we get all the new wiring done.
Any other questions on the project report? Not, moving on to ticket report.
So this is the standard ticketing report. Does anybody have any questions on this one at all?
Did your hand go up?
No, I was would just have my standard question about how come DSS had.
Yeah. That's because they have dedicated IT people down there, 2 of them.
Less problem.
Yeah, well, they're also about 150 users, so they're more than any other department in the county.
I think that's a standard report to your standard question.
Yeah.
That's what you're gonna ask it this time. This seems like they ought to be getting better.
Yeah.
Yes, Al?
Chairman, if it,
That might be mild.
if it eases the pain at all, I will tell you that DSS is one of the 2 departments that leverages our indirect cost report for actual state aid dollars. So while their incidences are more than the average bear, we leverage that more than the average bear money into some actual money, so.
Stop asking the question.
I just, if that gives you any consolation.
It just jumps out every time.
Yeah.
Any other question on the ticketing report?
That's one.
You have another one?
No. I'd be just at the end of the day.
Well, it's just a lot of sound, and a lot of action and arms moving from that corner, so I didn't want to miss any. Budget transfers, you have some budget transfers you'd like to discuss?
I'd like to request that we carry forward from last year to roll into our reserve, and if I get this wrong now, please let me know. What we had left, which was $189,985 that we'd like to roll into the IT reserve.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move it. Finance.
Second, now this, according to board meeting the other day, this goes to finance, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that is moving into finance. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Is that complete?
That's it.
Any questions, that needs to be addressed before I adjourn? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you as well. Record for you.
Dan.
Yeah,
That guy was
all
good
one
at
day.
18th century information technology.
Yeah, why did you think right now?
Sure did.
The second the pay color.
Yeah. Yeah, the money spending is an issue.
Jimmy Lee.
Did it.
Well, there's more on St. Anne's Road.
Yes, yes, I did.
You didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everything. The one I did.
Oh, that was letting.
Good morning. Call the Governor Mass meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of March 19th?
Second.
Okay, and motion is second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
County clerk.
All right, so the first item is the map copy fee. So on the 10th of April, myself and Deputy LaFar met with Miranda's office, Real Property, just to kind of streamline some processes when people come in to get maps certified. And it was brought up that they charge $10 and we were only charging $7. So in order to make things so people weren't just coming to the county clerk's office to save $3, we're asking that we increase our rate to $10. That service.
I'll move with the finance.
So something you need something. So you can say here.
Defer to Deborah Dan.
I don't think.
I don't think there's an action.
And their fee schedule should affect the budget.
I
Well,
don't.
some fee schedule already adopted. I don't know that this is one.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
Clerks, I think she does.
So we can just.
This
take care of
committee
it.
can do
And and if we need a
The
resolution.
only
we
reason,
can
the reason I question that is because we're raising a fee on the public and all 17 ought to have an opportunity to vote on it. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Unless it's a good issue, it'd be there, have to do it.
We could probably get out of this committee.
Yeah.
It'll-
Just walked in.
Budget officer, what's your thoughts? We're moving the map fee up to $10 down at the county clerk, so it equals what it is up in real property. Does that have to go to finance or can it be moved in this committee?
That could be moved in this committee. Good. No, we'll have to listen to the language. It was passed. Then it goes. to the full board.
It'll go to the full board,
Okay.
right?
That's-
Right, it'll be a resolution. to the full board.
The board doesn't adopt the fee schedule, then it doesn't have to go to the board. So let's stay tuned. It may come just out of this committee.
So it still may just come out of this committee, is everybody? All right. I'll sleep tonight. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, one down.
All right, next one is DMV summer hours. So, because the public has been asking for this, and also consider there are current employees that when the time changes and it gets dark at 4:30, they prefer not to be here at the county building. I'm proposing that we have late Thursday night hours till 6 o'clock from the months May through October. We would not be increasing staff. We'd use the staff that we currently have. When we did this pre-COVID, staff would come in late and kind of flex their schedule. But I'm proposing that they can either flex, comp the time, or be paid for it. Because we do have more people here. They're here at 8:15, 8:30 to, now that the building is open, to come in and do their DMV business, which puts a strain on the other employees if they're covering because someone is coming in late. I believe we have the funds for it. Because I knew that would be brought up. I was like, where's the money gonna come from? I wanted to just put out there that these are 37.5 hour employees. Okay, we're talking about an hour and 45 minutes. It would be 21 Thursdays between May and October, because there's July 4th, we wouldn't be here. We did not backfill a DMV position from June 15th of 2023 until February 1st of this year. We also currently have a DMV employee out on disability. And we also did not have an archivist for a month and a half. I've also spoken to Al, and I've also spoke to the sheriff, because before we had a deputy here. And talking with the sheriff, we don't feel like we need to have a full-time deputy here for that hour and a half. He has patrol officers, if they'll be alerted that we could be conducting business, they will check in on us as needed. So it's right now, there would be no cost for that.
Discussion.
Sounds like a good initiative. Sean's creative.
Dan. Lisa, now, you explained how you have them enough money to do this, but in reality, in another year, it will impact your budget. But I also believe that your department is a service department for the county. And I think anytime you can come up with a creative way to better serve the county citizens, we willing to support it. So I'd say try it and see how it
What
works
it's about,
out.
it's about trying it, and we'll see what happens.
Is that a motion, Dan?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a motion.
I'll mind.
A second.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, just had more discussion there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the motion, but we have discussion. So the fees also will come from the additional traffic that's coming through now, and then the money, the revenue will bring it in,
Yes.
which will help offset any
I mean,
expenses.
we are getting folks from Warren County.
Yeah.
We are getting folks from Saratoga County. You know, I come from Easton and unfortunately, in the past, a lot of our folks, Dan will tell you, they would go to Saratoga. And this is a convenience, especially for people that are work.
Ryan,
Yeah, so my question is, and I thought that's where Dan was going, because all of our departments are actually services to the county, so I thought he was gonna tie that all in, not just this one. But there will be any idea what the yearly cost will be for this, even if the money's there now?
Lisa, how many staff would be the extra hour?
There would be one supervisor and 2 licensing clerks. I did a rough estimate. I'm not the money person now. I'm not gonna try to take over. But I figured 3150 was an exaggerated amount of how much it would cost. 21 nights, 3 staff members.
Yeah. That's rough, but that's just wanted an idea.
It's about around $100 a night for however many nights you get. Plus fringe.
21.
Yeah.
21.
Count on.
It's all straight time overtime, so.
Yeah, it said they have to work 2.5 hours before we talk about overtime. The only one who may run into overtime would be supervisor, because the supervisor starts early to set the stations up. But we have 5,000 was the budget for overtime.
It's not an astronomically huge number by any means.
I didn't figure it was, that's why I wanted to add someone here.
Anybody else got more discussion? Okay, we have a motion to go forward with this plan. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 3 down. Now,
Wall.
the color of the painting of the wall with the chairman's portrait on the back.
He's ready.
Was that the chairman of the board or chairman of the committee?
He got you on that
He's
one.
on it this morning.
Yes, got his game.
So we get a lot of excited new drivers and parents who come in for their permits, and we wanted to do something where we're not intruding in DMV in that building, not intruding. And we had this beautiful wall that Matt Jones erected, and we're looking to have our archivist Grace is also an artist, and we were looking for her to come up with some ideas for to kind of decorate the wall, doing a little kind of a play off of the county logo, but something that would say, well, you know, Washington County DMV, so that people had an opportunity to take a picture with their child as they got their permit. It's kind of a coming of age that I think we all can remember when we ourselves became drivers, and we just wanted to expand that. And
Do we really want to capture the sadness of the parents who realize their auto insurance is stuff?
They haven't realized that it's that.
sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it, Dan, you know that.
You are starting to sound like Roger. All right, as long as I don't look, I'm okay.
So we're,
Dan, you have a question.
Yeah, no cost to the county, right?
No.
Then I have no problem.
oh,
Do you need a resolution to do
she came up with
that, or
some
is it just
sketches,
a-
and we're just in the preliminary right now, so that's what we're looking at. We'll come up with some detailed sketches, and I'll present it at the next meeting.
My only request, and I did already speak to Lisa about it, if we could just kind of sit down and discuss what gets painted on the wall
Yes.
prior to being painted, including Matt Jones.
Yes,
In on that, because we want to keep, you know, the professional
yeah,
decor
absolutely.
of the county building.
Yeah, we
Not
had,
go
we had
too
thrown around about making it a contest with this area schools, but then, you know, there would be hurt feelings and maybe, you know. So we said we want professional, and that's why we're gonna enlist Grace.
So that was my question, because if we bring back the decision to this board, will be like 4 more meetings, so should like Melissa and Chairman be the 2 who are looking at it and up to them?
And the county attorney with the logo being involved.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't
And
know,
Matt.
do you qualify or should
Yes.
it be enough to be?
Very much so, I'm incredibly sensitive.
I know.
If it can be digital sized, then you can put it in on the backdrop of the big sign that's going in out front.
We could.
Do we need a motion just to move forward with this, or it's?
I think you just give general approval.
General
Don't need a resolution.
Everybody's shaking their head.
Everyone got it.
I just wanted to say to Lisa, it's not that we don't trust her.
Oh, I
But
don't.
we've had occasion to say, somebody said we want to paint the wall, we said, go ahead, and didn't come out really well. So that's why if we seem a little gun shy, and
No,
look over your shoulder, that's why
That's
it's not.
completely understandable.
And he is being politically correct. He doesn't trust you.
Yeah, not.
I'll see you tomorrow, right?
Just trying to say is you're the beneficiary of this.
Is there,
Oh, okay.
Any more views questions?
It's a motion. You have to do a motion to approve it.
Yeah, Dan shook his head down here, so I
I mean,
would.
it's- that could be a resolution, and you just give.
Well, it
permission
gets
to
the
go forward.
committee, the committee motion on it.
I think Dan made the motion, didn't he?
There was a
No.
motion.
I asked if a motion needed to be made and he said no.
You made it, seconded it, right?
So what do you need one now? Do you
I don't,
looking
I just
for
want
one?
approval of the committee.
I move it.
Okay,
Second.
motion a second, all in favor, aye?
It also protects our county clerks if everyone's complaining, they say, oh, we didn't. Yeah, no, we don't need to have media.
In other words, don't trust any of it.
All right,
You
all
have-
right. Do we know, no, that's it. All right, thank you, guys.
Good place.
It's a reason.
Yes. Okay, so we have a 3-year contract with LEAP for adult and dislocated worker program services as well as youth services. And I just wanted to make the committee aware that we are going to be going out for RFP. And that'll be happening because the contract does expire June 30th. So just an FYI. That we'll be putting out an RFP for those services. The second item that I have is employee meal reimbursement
Whoops,
procedure.
whoops, Brian.
Sure.
Your RFP, the agreement's with Lee,
Yeah.
and the RFP is for someone else or for someone to provide that to you? Just trying to get a clarification.
It's
It-
our service that we RFP and Leap responds to.
Oh, so anybody can respond
Yes.
to it, okay. That's-
Including-
That's what I needed.
It's,
Yep.
it's money that's directed to the Washington County. We then send out an RFP to have somebody do it for. us. Leap
So
is
it's
the
not
only one,
necessarily that we're changing or anything, they put it out the RFP to see what our opportunity.
and we did 3 years ago as well.
Perfect.
And the contract last year, or I'm sorry, 3 years ago, was for 1 year with the 2-year extension. So that's how we got to the 3 years. I'd like to do the same thing with this one. Because if we have discussions and we want to change the way that we're doing workforce development, that may be something we can do in the future as well.
Just for the record, again, I think I've said this before, dislocated worker is a horrible title.
They still use it.
It reminds me of what Cassie does to it.
Oh, man. He's everything.
Go to the second item now? Sure. All right, second item is the employee meal reimbursements. Bringing this to the committee, I have some comments from a couple of the department heads during one of our department head meetings. And 2 of the larger departments, and I'll just mention, it's the sheriff's office and DSS. They have a lot of employees that actually are away for training, conferences, work sometimes. So they have a lot of meal reimbursements where the employees have to provide receipts for each meal that they have, and that receipt goes through the audit process, gets reimbursed, or maybe there's issues, they don't have the receipt, it's all crinkled up, went through the wash. It's a huge process. The departments are finding it quite cumbersome because they're spending a lot of time hunting down $9 receipts for breakfast and all this. And in a lot of cases, the employees aren't being reimbursed because it's just an effort that they don't feel like putting forth. We currently have a voucher policy that states that the receipts have to be submitted in order to get reimbursed. I'm looking to the committee to see if there's any interest in changing that procedure. Or we keep it as is. The other option would be to do, pay out like a per diem amount, which would go through their paycheck. It would have to come from the department head. The department head would verify that that employee was out of town and is actually eligible for that, money for meals that occurred. And then that would go to the treasurer's office, and the treasurer's office would follow through on that process and pay out the employee.
Thanks.
Yeah, having lived through that nightmare for 14 years, I can tell you that, number one, it's really outdated because most other businesses don't do it that way. That's number one. And number two is that the way the system is set up now is you get paid by the meal, all right? So if it's my preference that Dan eats a breakfast, I don't eat a breakfast for whatever reason. I may be going through my meeting and not have time for lunch. So therefore, that money's carried over. And then my main meal, even though it may be not the right place to do it, would be at dinner time. That as an employee would be the same way I would eat at home, so I should be entitled to that. And if I don't have receipts from the other ones, I don't get that money to use towards the major dinner. It's all coming out of the same pot. It's all, you know, but it should be the employee's preferences to eat, do not. I mean, it's the rates that we got. It's hard to even eat those anymore and fall within the line. And they shouldn't have to pay out of their own pocket to eat when they're on the road traveling. You know, different policy than you have your house and people here, but you know, we'll be paying them for lunches. But again, it's by no choice that they're out of town doing their jobs. And a lot of times the receipts that you get from the restaurants are wrong because they give you the wrong ticket, because you're all sitting there and when you go to get it. So, you know, you could pay $9 for your breakfast. You end up even with the long line behind you. A lot of people don't take the time to say, okay, is this the right receipt that I got? They see it on the register, think they're getting the right receipt. And there's a lot of obstacles for it. Then it comes up into the office up here, and then they have to go through each receipt and say, okay, is this within what the line was is allocated for breakfast? If it's like $7, $8 for breakfast, did they spend more than that? Well, now we gotta go back and change the report because we said 10 something rather than the 8. It just covers the system. It's an old system. All the businesses out there, we always say we're not part of a business. Well, we can't all the time, but this is one where we could. And we just want to stipend. And
Melissa,
easier to everybody.
do you and or the Al have a per diem fee in mind?
We're not looking to change the rates, just how they're paid.
The rates right now that are in the employee handbook are $7 for breakfast, $9 for lunch, and $14 for dinner. So the whole day is $30.
Which will barely understand breakfast and lunch these days.
Right.
So Melissa, you would be, for somebody who's away 2 days, you would be $30 each day. That's what you're saying,
Yes.
that they would get?
Yeah.
Whether they ate breakfast or lunch or missed it or what, they still get it.
Unless their conference included the lunch, and then that would be deducted from the $30.
And do we usually know that? Is that?
Yes, we know
Yes.
that when they register.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, if they're registered for meals and they're getting those meals that are paid for, we're not gonna give them the reimbursement.
okay.
And two, if I could just mention, also, I wanted to make you aware, one of the, items that came up in DSS in their circumstances are their training that the caseworkers go to, which is a period of 3 months, so it's 1 week on and 1 week off, is very remote. So for them to leave the training center to go get food, it's not really possible for them. One of the options they also have and they use are vending machines for meals. They don't give you a receipt, so there's no way for them to get reimbursed for that.
No, I was gonna just say from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we have a system right now which is effective, not efficient. And I think what you're suggesting matches a lot more, like Sam's talking about, what I've seen on the government side more of late, so. I say go for it.
Yeah, we tried to do this 10 years ago. And it got shot down because they thought that it would cost the county more. You know, we should be getting receipts, but actually, I think even the state went to a per diem rate years and years and years ago. I think we ought to I think we also maybe ought to double those pumps.
Well, we should be saving a lot of money in Al's office just because of the time consuming going through the receipts and figuring. it
Well,
out.
actually, that's down at the clerk of the board's office.
Dan, you-
You might have already answered this when I was out of the room. If you leave to go to a conference in the morning, and you're gonna be gone 2 or 3 days. Now, when you take the county carpool at 8 o'clock, breakfast should be behind you until you're gonna bill for lunch and supper,
Correct.
or however that works. And then from there on, if you're at a conference, all 3 meals are covered, so, okay.
Unless they're included in the comp.
Yes, that part I understood.
Happens more so with training.
More training.
And and just work being remote, you know.
And some of the transports for the sheriff, when they're transporting inmates or they have an extradition or something like that. It's a little bit harder for them to kind of, you know, they're dealing with prisoners and evidence and now they gotta deal with these receipts from McDonald's and it's just recipe for failure.
So we have kind of 2 things. One, it sounds like you guys are interested in going to the per diem. Second thing is, it's $30 where you want to leave it set, or do you want?
I agree with the chairman. I think we ought to move it as to what we should do too. I think it should be increased just because of the economy. Everybody else is through cost. You go buy a meal yourself.
Yeah, you could adjust based on the federal, but you know, just staff it as you need to.
Maybe Melissa, you can find out what other counties in the federal are.
Yeah, I can look into
Suggestion.
what the federal rate is, and then, there's also have to be a policy change, so I could bring that back to committee next month.
And I'd be happy to work with the clerk of the board and county administrator on an internal process that still protects the taxpayers and still gets the job done.
So at this point, so, yeah, all the information, it's just you guys move forward and bring it back to the committee.
Perfect, yeah, I just wanted to see if there was interest. All right, move forward with it, thank you very much.
Chairman,
Yeah.
so could we ask on, you said it was 2 items there, so could we act on the fact that we want to go to a per diem basis for them? And then if we don't change the rates, we don't, but we got that much that we can at least move forward with. And then the next time around, the next meeting should come back with what's gonna cost to raise the rates.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second to go to the per diem. Any more discussion on it? All in favor, aye? Oh, okay, thank you.
Chairman,
Yeah.
just for clarity's sake, that's probably gonna be a board resolution, because you're actually changing policy on them.
Yeah.
Yes. Just for clarity.
So we move that to personnel then? Go on through.
Not usually, not for policy, I mean, I can bring it to finance.
Okay.
We can talk about it, get it financed, but.
Yeah, why don't I bring the rates and the policy to finance, does that work, and then we'll go to the full board to make the change?
Yes,
We can,
Okay.
we can make sure that we haven't missed any, because we've got a couple different policies that it might touch, so we'll make sure that we've checked all our boxes internally.
Do you have contracts too that will factor in?
I'm not sure if the meals are actually reflected in the contracts, or if it just goes to the employee handbook,
I just wanna
they all
make sure
match anyway,
that we-
Yeah.
yeah, but it would affect everyone.
So Sam amended his motion to go to finances, everybody.
And then my second.
Very good.
The other item I have on the agenda, is the employee lunch option. I wanted to ask the committee if there was any interest in allowing or offering to Washington County businesses to have food trucks. The ability to come on to the municipal grounds maybe once a week, 1 or 2 trucks to offer employees and whatever members of the public that are driving by or stopping in, that option for lunch. There's no cost to the county. It would just be an option, for employees. I had that brought to me. It was discussed last year. It was mentioned again this year, just employees looking for some kind of option because we don't have any kind of cafeteria. A lot of people don't have a long period for lunch, as you all know as well. So just the ability just to grab something, quick and maybe give a little bit of business to our local food trucks.
So where would the truck be?
So we've discussed that. We have a couple different options. I've also talked to Matt Jones this morning. We kind of think right now the best option might be in front of the shop, the DPW shop, where we have that parking lot because we can cone it off. So that we don't have cars going by with the public or with employees. And that was the concern in past years when we kind of heard the request and discussed it a little bit, is just trying to control traffic and keep it safe. We have a lot of cars around here, so that will take a little bit of maneuvering and planning on our part, but might be a nice option for employees as well.
No, that's fine. Then the market will determine whether or not they keep coming. So,
Right. And what I'd like to do is send a letter out, get a list of food trucks, maybe the fairgrounds. I know that they've had food truck events there. And send letters out to the businesses, reference to Washington County businesses, of course, see if anyone's interested. If it flops and they don't get a lot of, business and it's not worth their time, then we'll discontinue it. But, I'd like to at least try it. The committee allow me to.
If we get several that are interested, are you gonna try to rotate them on? Because we don't have a lot of room out there.
cage match.
I think 1 or 2 trucks at a time is about all we can handle out there.
Brian?
Well, if public health moves in a timely fashion, in another year, you might be able to come over at that parking lot. That might be an opportunity to maybe figure out 1 or 2 trucks at a time right now, but if it actually does work and you can expand, it's a little further to walk, at least there's more room and you'd be on our way walking your lunch.
Yes, yeah, and that was one of the locations that we discussed as well. The only concern I have there is that the entrance going in and out with all the police cars and sheriff's deputies going in and out of there if they're in an emergency. I just, just trying to pick a place that, keeps people the safest.
You actually do have a crosswalk there. in the middle of that.
And people always yield, right?
Well, I'm on the main road.
No, right.
I think it's a great idea. I'm not opposed to it, but 2 questions that pop up in my mind that you might want to be thinking about is these food trucks will want to advertise wherever, their own website saying that they're going to be here to get the employees to be aware of it, which is going to draw in the public. So you're gonna wanna have a spot, and maybe that's the right place for the public to park, because they're gonna pull it. So you're gonna, not that that's bad, I mean, so far it's not an issue. But secondly, the further away you get, I don't know how much time your employees have for lunch. Will you allow the option, can they deliver into the building?
Well, they can do that now.
Well, no, but you're gonna get a lot more, is all I'm saying, and then just to be aware of it, and like I say, I'm not opposed to any of it, I'm just saying that to make it all work, especially if you have the public here, that's gonna slow service down, that the employees are gonna say, well, I better order and have it delivered for a few bucks more, so I can enjoy my meal rather than have 5 minutes left over after I get it to eat. And it's just thought, this is all just thoughts that I think you're gonna have to deal with it, but I like the idea.
And what I'd like to do is put it out to the employees first and see, maybe they'll have enough business just with the county employees that are here, to make it worth their while. And maybe they won't have to go out, and notify the public, because we really don't have the parking.
But you can't
For a
tell
lot
them,
of
you
outside- Oh,
can't
no.
advertise,
No,
so
right,
if I was a food truck, that's the first thing I do is put it on my Facebook page, I'm gonna be at this location on a certain day.
And just drive, especially I'm up by the shopping and drive by.
right.
You need to come to our parking lot. People are saying-
You had your hand up.
Melissa, did you say you invite a couple?
I'm sorry.
You were gonna invite a couple food trucks each week?
Well, I was gonna actually put a letter out to as many as I could find and see who's interested, but I think as far as scheduling them, I don't think we could handle more than 1 or 2.
My fear is you're gonna get people who feel like they're being alienated. It's a bad example, the tow company thing. It's always Washington County. You have so many tow companies that think they're being blocked from tows. I can only imagine what this will do. It's like it's going to be for for preference to Washington County vendors, right?
Mhm.
And then how are we gonna figure out a schedule? Like, who's
I
gonna-
think we'll have to find out who's interested, have them notify county administration, and then just, if we only have 1 or 2 trucks, it's pretty easy. You're right, if we get 30 trucks that are interested, then we'll have to schedule it. I don't want to turn anyone away if they're interested in doing it.
But if you have if you have a schedule, and I understand exactly what Dana's saying, different from the towing business, though, but if you have a schedule and you post it, the truck A and B are gonna be here the first Tuesday of the month. C and D are gonna be here, and you just rotate on the second Tuesday of the month.
Mhm.
And you just rotate that straight through. I think that will, because it'd be a concrete schedule as to who was getting called when. Does that make sense? Or no?
Yeah, I have a feeling you're gonna have.
I know exactly what you're saying there, because you hear that all the time
They
now.
don't let me come in.
Right.
Mr. Nolan,
Having frequented some of these trucks, going back to Dan's point, sometimes there can be a 15-minute wait when you order. So they gotta walk out there, they wait, they get it, and walk back. There's, 25 minutes. And I don't know, did they get a half an hour lunch or an hour?
The shortest lunch break is a half hour.
So it's just something to think about.
But
so,
they can be staggered too, right?
Yes, they are.
So that will start at 11:30,
They
and
are.
so I'll take it to 1:30, so
Right.
you can get a little.
so,
Do we get like a certificate of insurance from them?
We'll have to look into that. I'm sure that I know that they all have to have insurance, so we will make sure that they have.
It's a,
so you want Melissa to look into this further? Find out if anybody's interested?
Yes.
No, okay. All right,
Is it seasonal?
Only in some of them.
I'd like to go through fall if they're willing.
What if it's a hot cocoa truck?
yeah,
That's what I'm thinking. You're right where I was thinking. We could have s'mores and hot chocolate. I'm
Like
all
you
in
said,
for the
right
winter.
next to you.
hey, the one that's willing to come in the middle of the winter may do a bang up business.
They deliver in the building.
Right.
Yes.
Sure, I can.
You didn't vote. You didn't vote, but you didn't vote.
Oh, we weren't gonna have a motion.
sense right.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Somebody,
Yeah.
somebody.
Well, they were all kind of just saying it was a good
I
idea.
just, I really.
He's still looking
Say
into
it.
it, see if it makes work sense like that. Work.
Matt, you're up.
All right. I just have, well, I do have some business, some updates. Before then, we've had a couple kickoff meetings. I think equipment probably be moving there with this kind of weather this week. Just so everybody knows, if you're driving by and you see it, it doesn't look like a lot getting done. The way it's gonna stage is because it is such heavy clay. They will, and then Roselle Industries is our contractor, which is local, they're gonna move in and out. They won't be digging a month before the foundation's ready, because they'll be pumping out a pond if it rains. So they're just scheduling with the general contractor. If you see them cutting something, something's gonna happen there within a few days, whether, I think the first part is the sand pile, they're gonna get that pad laid. But the foundations, we're doing submittals now, so rebar stop, rebar drawings, all that sort of stuff has to be ready. And then when the general contractor says May 29th, we're gonna start the foundation. The week before, you'll see the site contractor actually in there doing the site work, so. You won't see just great big piles all of a sudden appearing. It's gonna be staged as we get the equipment that we need and the materials. So when I had got this all approved, we had talked about requiring special inspections that we're required to have. I looked through Atlantic testing laboratories and Labella. And I had budgeted 60,000, which I believe is already in the total number. Labella can do the required special inspections that we need for 23,000. So I just I don't think I need, to move it forward at all else, because it's already budgeted. How this works, because it's already in there. We already budgeted that number, but what kind of approval do I need? Do I need to go to finance at all?
If you've got the budget,
No, okay. Well, all right, that's fine. I'm just making sure before I
Yeah.
move on.
your budget's in place, you should be good.
Budget's in place.
Finance.
Yes. Okay. So that was actually good. That's a savings. And it's up to 23,000. Then, because there is some travel, other stuff in there that they may not use. Then the HVAC controls package, I had budgeted 104,000 and the proposal came in at 104,250. What we do need to do, I think, is a waiver to the purchasing policy for this. As that's the controls that we use for this building, the company, they're kind of like, sole distributor of that product for this area. So we're within $250. So I just need a motion to.
Second, Mr. Fisher. Any questions, Dan?
Was that put out to bid and that wasn't low bid?
No, so the story on that was it didn't come in time to go out to bid in the public package, it'd been the same price. But this is what we spec for that control. So
Right.
Automated Logic is this, they're the distributor in this area of it. So you can't buy Automated Logic from somebody else.
Right.
I just can't understand, man, at 100,000, how you be off 250.
Hey, every now and then you get lucky. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Any other comments, discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, yeah, permission to spend it. That's already budgeted. That's budgeted. Very good building. So we're good with that before then. Now. Okay, St. Paul's roof. That the bids are due May 7th. I think finance is May 9th. We had done the dates back. We've talked about this, so the bids will be in. I just need to be able to move this to finance from this meeting. I don't have the bids in yet, but if you're okay with discussing the bids, the financial part of the project at finance on May 9th.
Tim makes motions or second? Jim, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's the business end. Now, I want to just bring up for discussion today is back to the parking lot. So we've had, right, everybody laughing. So there's been a lot of discussion about the parking lot and everybody knows the history here. What I guess I would propose to do is we had done the parking lot as one big project, and we're going back 6-7 years ago. We did. Parking lot's not getting any better. I'm in full understanding that things out front may change in a few years, and we don't want to make a big investment. But our back parking lot here, where, employees park every day, it's not getting any better for snow removal, as more incidents are happening. And there is some other issues that I'd like to take care of out there with the parking lot and the access to the building. So what we have is we paid for the engineering 7 years ago. Obviously, the job specs that we're gonna go out, that went out to bid, is the whole job. The prints are the whole job, but what I'd like to do is get a proposal from our term contract engineer, which is Lavella, to say, we would like to scope down the project into different phases. Phase 1 may be this parking lot and the back road, and how can we do this? And the engineering's done, so they would take that engineering, would probably be much less cost than it was the first time, because they're just doing part of it and they're reusing, but they're gonna have to redo the job manual and everything else. What I'd like to include into that is we have no handicap access for employees on the back of the building. So our employees that are injured, for whatever reason, are using the public spots out here. And also, if you look out, there's no curb cuts were ever done from that parking lot into the building. So right now, employees have to go through cars in between. I don't know if you've seen them in the winter, and they have to step up over the curb to get on the curb. Whereas really, there should have been curb cuts made, you know, and sloped out to the parking lot with a spot that's blocked off, so they have an open way in between cars. Right now, most of our falls happen between cars. I mean, I don't know, probably not many people here park out back, but you're trying to edge in between cars to get on that thing. So I'd like to have that done, and around the campus, all the places that have the pavers. The pavers are, you know, 30 years old and they're heaved up and this, that, they're hard to actually keep the snow off them. I'd like to get rid of the pavers and make a, you know, a regular concrete sidewalk entrance into the building, which would be much better. You know, that would go all the way around the building. I think there's, it's already concrete, but it's getting redone. The B entrance, C entrance, and then out back. And in the process, I think the courtyard entrance, I'd like to make that the handicap as part of the project. You could put a ramp down, you know, there's enough space there for a ramp down and redo this, so that entrance would be a, you know, a handicap entrance for employees in the back, which would take the pressure off. Because there is days, I don't know if you've noticed that there is an issue out front with some of the parking spots being full. So mostly when we have employees with injuries that are still working. So this is up for discussion and should it, I mean, what I'd like to do is just get a proposal from Labella, which would be the first step, and it would cost us this much, you know, to get the engineering done to do these projects. And I would leave the front alone because I'm in full agreement that we don't want to spend money in spots that in a few years it may change anyways. So, go ahead.
As far as the engineering done, yeah, they have to re-break because the scope is smaller, but the engineering of the actual layout is all done, so.
Drainage and all that stuff is done.
They will need to do that so they don't all redo it again.
Yes. I have all that, all the legal stuff from the first time. I mean, I still have all that stuff. So.
Mr. Chairman.
I was not very impressed with that last study we had done. Especially because of, I mean, could we even use that engineering for this back parking lot? Because they had the drainage going out to the front.
So
I mean, it's.
that one, the drainage right now goes to the front. There's a lot of the drainage actually goes on that parking lot, goes that way. Depends if it's stormwater or not, but the stormwater, when we did this before, they also, if you remember, to come up the code with the stormwater, they had to leave the back. Everybody's, oh, more parking out back. Well, you can't because
Right.
you're already, and they were actually gonna make that one area more retention out there. So we would look at that and address that with the new engineer, like, hey, we can't put, we used to, the county was one of the biggest things. We talk about putting water in the sewers, you know, we put rainwater. I mean, it was just what they used to do, you know, so we have slowly been fixing, you know, where it should be going to retention ponds and everything else. And this would be part of it, but the back parking lot, yes, should be going out there 100%. I think the biggest thing was the laneway over by the backside of the building. There is no drainage over there. So, yeah, right. We have to take care of that. Right now, you're okay. It runs, there's some old manholes, but they're already all collapsing now. Just like out here, if you peek out the windows, you can see all the cones around them. The old dry wells that they use, you know, they're just collapsing in there. They need to be redone too. So,
Now, are you talking to the south side?
south side laneway and then the west side parking lot.
Now, where does it end on the west side? Where
I
do
would
you
say
went-
at the employee right there, you know, for now. I mean, we can make that wherever we want as a staged project, but I would say let's take care of the safety part first, which is, you know, where employees are parking and coming into the building. And I don't have Dan's numbers or anything, but I do know because I get every time that somebody slips and falls in a parking lot or there's ice or something, I mean, I'm getting the calls. So I do know that it happens a lot, whether it's cost us a lot or not. you know, it is some sort of risk management. I don't have that number.
I've had conversations with Matt and with Deb, over the last 6 or 8 months, and the parking lot, in talking to Deb, I mean, she kind of pointed out to me where it's gotten so thin that there's just dirt now. There's no pavement over it. And the cracks have gotten so big that if you're wearing anything other than boots, if you're wearing dress shoes or whatever, your heel gets stuck in the cracks, and I am really concerned that somebody is going to get really hurt. We have had some injuries already, but I'd like to get it taken care of before it gets worse.
Timeline on this, man? This year or study this year and then?
Well, the discussion is now, I don't know you know, as far as the scope of work that we would go with the, you know, engineers. I can't imagine in county time that this happens this year. You know, I'd love to say, hey, maybe it's a fall project, but with everything else going on, whether I can really, you know, get into it, or is it a winter project, it's something we talk about for happening in spring. If we get that proposal, we would know where we're at. And I think the other thing is, you know, we don't have it budgeted for, so you're gonna have to, you know, this is just a proposal of a project.
My heart's getting too weak for these capital improvements.
Your ankle's gonna get too sore if you trip.
Just saying.
Dean,
Man, you said about cutting the ramps up, from the parking lot up onto the sidewalk,
Yeah,
and you talked about handicap accessibility. Is there ramps going down into the door?
no, so what?
So how would that work?
So it's not every single one. We just
But there is
provide
some.
one. Now, when I say a curb cut, I'm just talking, so you don't have to step up on the curb to go down in. But the, courtyard right here, you know where the courtyard goes to the two, that's up a set of steps. That set of steps would turn into the handicap ramp up into the landing, which is the courtyard. That gives you the space you need, you know, if you needed to go out back or whatever, but that would give you the space, plus it would land you between the two buildings. You know, for, in most of B and C employees park here or at the end. So that would give them an access point one way or the other. That would, in my opinion, that was the best place to try to get handicap access instead of down into back of B, which would only serve one area. Or C, which now you're stuck in a C basement. You know, that will get you to the first floor, right down the hall by, right here, over the elevator.
Now, the engineering we had done that took care, addressed the south side.
Yes,
So you're gonna do the south and the west to the end of building C?
yeah, I would say to probably right to the end of building C, whether you cut it off at the parking lot or just go up a little, probably cut it off the parking lot. That would be, I would say, stage one of the, you know, of the parking lot project, and then we could go from there.
So are we talking about using the same engineering study that was done that the chairman says he wasn't impressed with?
Well, I'll review it. I mean, not saying,
No, I'm just saying that.
he might not be impressed, but if I look at it, and I'm gonna get as much out of the engineering we already paid for that is possible. If we're gonna have it redone, so when we go through it, I'll invite y'all, and if there is some issues that we have, then we would bring it to the new, to the people we're having redo it and say, here was a few issues we had. You know, what can we do to correct it? But we're gonna try to get the most, I'm gonna try to recoup some of that money that we spent
No, I
7 years ago.
I understand.
Yeah.
My only concern, I wasn't here then,
Yep.
but if there's enough supervisors in here that weren't satisfied with that plan, then it may not, you may spend all your time and it may not go forward. I guess I'm thinking that.
The satisfaction wasn't from, dissatisfaction was not from the engineering, it was from the project itself and the timing of the project for the most part.
well,
I could pretty fairly say.
Danny and I both
right,
voted no on
and
that.
No, I'm not
the
saying.
back side wasn't so bad, but I thought the front side was,
Yeah, I think
it was all screwed up on the front side.
So I'm not gonna just pick it up and send it to them. I'm gonna pick it back up and review it and be like, hey, here's, you know, here's what we need.
Now, are they under contract or is there gonna be? a
Well,
fee?
that's the other, my next question is, can you go straight to there, Deanna, or do we have to put out an RFP?
I was gonna use the term contract that we're using now. And we wouldn't have to go out to RFP. And we weren't that happy with that set of engineers at the time, so I steered away, but the work is done. I mean, you still have all the surveying was done. All the tests, all the core samples were already done, they were already tested. So like all that stuff was already in there, so it's gonna take another engineering company, which we have, Labella on term contract, which we just signed in for our 5-year, to dissect that and say, okay, this is what we can use of it. They still have to put it in their CAD system, right? And then they'll also review it and say, these are the shortfalls, or this is some stuff that we can save you if you're only gonna do this part of it. But they have to pull that part out of the full set of prints. And if you wanna see them, they're hanging in my office.
One more question that I had, since we have them on contract. Is there costs associated with this, or we already have them under contract? or
No.
not?
So there, I'm asking them to give us a proposal to modify the last prints. They'll give us a proposal. I will come back here and say, you know, their proposal to do this is 40,000, you know, and then we would go from there. Right now, I just need,
40,000.
I'm just.
No, but.
10, 100 million, I don't know. I'm just throwing a number. They have to give us a proposal. Right. They have to give me a proposal and I have to get that approved. That's the way the term contract works, is I just don't, right.
Laura had a comment.
So I almost hate to say this, but depending on the amount of work that has to go in to create the handicap accessibility, CDBG, I know everybody's favorite word, while it's not typically eligible for use on municipal buildings, the exception is handicap accessibility. So there might be the possibility to apply for funding, but it would only be worth it if the cost is extensive enough to make it worth it. There is funding.
It will be. I mean, I can rest assured that, you know, it's not gonna be what it was 7 years ago. And with the sidewalks and the reducing those pavers and getting rid of those will be a big thing. I mean, I'm not trying to get out of work, you know, every year Phil's knocking on my door like, hey, pavers over there are up this far, you know, we're way out of whack. You're over there trying to, you know, pavers are for the south, you know, unless they're in your backyard. They're not meant for everyday traffic like we're putting in there.
So does the committee want, I have to go forward with this?
I'd be back with a proposal. We're not really asking for action. I just want to bring this up for discussion. So like, if you guys have, you're crazy, Matt, tell me now. So when I get this, I'm not wasting my time.
Dan,
My concern, and I'm not opposed to what you're saying, but let's say whatever number it is it costs for your engineering. And then we get a proposal to do it, right? We go down that road and it comes to $300,000 to the back parking lot at the south side.
Yep.
Or 400,000. I don't think it'd be less than 3. Do we have the money and are we willing to spend it this year with everything else going on? Because that's the bottom line.
it won't be done this year, Dan.
I think you're.
Well, if the engineering is all done, and it could be a fall project.
We're
it
talking
could actually get
April.
done.
Well, if you're talking April, Dan, I bring a proposal for the engineering in May.
Yeah,
I'm good at this timeline now.
okay.
Right, I bring this back to May, June, you guys are actually full board approve it, right? Then, so the engineering takes a couple months, 3 months to get done, so that puts you in August, September. Now the engineering's done, then I work with Barb, we go out to bid, we put it out to bid for a month. You're gonna end up in September, October.
Mhm.
And I would just say you're probably gonna line up a first up in the spring project, would probably be our best bet to get.
And then they won't bid it because you
Well,
don't get
they-
your price on the blacktop this spring. I mean, whatever the
Well,
price would
We
be.
would put it out to bid, but we could also, we have everything in our hands. What we do, I withhold bids sometimes until I think the market's favorable to get it. Like, I don't necessarily just follow that. Like, I might say, you know, let's hold it for 3 months because of the, you know, because the blacktop prices are now, or it's favorable to do it now because they're looking for first projects. Like, I'll get the inside construction thing and then I would bring it here before we went out to bid anyways. And I tell you why. You know,
I see that, Vice Chairman O'Brien said in the text here, that said that the state's new $50 million infrastructure, may be a source of funding to do this, so.
Okay.
Just want to pass that on.
And we will look at all that. We always do. And lots of times our engineers, our hired engineers are in that field all the time. So they're always aware of state funding because they, that gives them more projects.
So committee wants the, Nash to go forward with this, right? But not.
I'm moving as a committee to move it forward to see where we're at. Because we need to do something, so we might just, well,
Fisher.
Second.
Right. Any more comments? All in favor? Opposed?
Okay. Great afternoon.
Yep.
Okay.
I got a question for Matt.
Yep.
I see the well drillers are down in
Yep.
Middle Falls. Did they hit water yet?
I was there at 6:30 this morning. They weren't, so I don't know. They didn't tell me what
They
time
were
they were gonna be
there.
there. I was there from 6:30 to 7 and they weren't, the truck was there, but that came yesterday afternoon.
Oh, they're just getting started.
They were just-
Probably haven't started.
They haven't drilled
Okay.
yet. I was hoping to catch them down there this morning, but they didn't, and not before they got there.
I had mentioned, so the mailroom, it's located down the first floor, it falls under county administration. I've mentioned to some of the supervisors that, we've had some issues, challenges, I guess, with the mailroom, as far as helping that packages get delivered. We really don't have that area manned. There has been a DSS employee in the past that has been there to sort the mail. We received word from the post office a week or two ago, that we didn't have people down there to sign for the certified mail. So the post office was actually taking that mail back to the post office. So it became clear that we needed to do something about the mailroom and have somebody down there instead of the process that we have had for years, which is basically if you happen to be down there, you sign for the packages. Then the packages get delivered by someone in buildings and grounds, taking them off jobs that they're currently working on to go get a package, and then they're delivering it, and then we don't know where the package went. Sometimes it's taken to the wrong office, then we spend hours looking for the package. It's never been a very well-run system. So when I voiced that concern to some of the supervisors, and then I spoke to Matt about it, we've been talking about it with public safety, trying to come up with a system. Matt actually came up with a great idea, which I thought is very helpful and will help us get through at least the rest of the year. So I'm not here asking for permission to hire somebody that's not currently on the staffing pattern. So Matt has a vacancy within his department. He has currently put somebody, assigned them to the mailroom. So that person can actually sign for the mail. We can come up with a tracking process so that when the mail is delivered, packages are delivered, we can actually log them, scan them, do something. And then when they're delivered to a department, know exactly where they went. So I just wanted to kind of say in front of the committee and Matt that, I appreciate us working together and coming up with a solution, at least for now, which will help manage the mail, I think, a little bit better. And we'll have to reevaluate it after probably a few months, see how it works. What's been happening the last month or two is we actually have screens, iPads in county admin and one down in buildings and grounds. So if someone comes to the back door and they actually need a package signed for, it's being buzzed. So either his staff or my staff are running downstairs to get down there in a timely manner. And then everyone's impatient because they have other deliveries to make, right? They don't want to sit down there or stand down there for even 5 more minutes than they have to. So I think this system will at least get us through the next few months. We'll reevaluate it and see what we have to do going forward. But
I'd like to honestly say that it was all for the county good, but for my department, it's really good because we get called off. My guys are doing remodels or wherever, and then a package comes and somebody has to sign for it. They might come from building C in the middle of a project. And if you guys know, if you're sheetrocking, drywalling, or even in the middle of replacement, like you're getting down off a ladder, you come over, you do it, the package ends up needing to be delivered. It's not the 20 minutes that it have. Right now you gotta go get back going again. So now by having, it's a benefit to me to have one guy there, and I know that's his job. And then we had received some suggestions from DSS for a while about the bathrooms downstairs, our high volume ones. and they like them clean during the day. So I also assign the guy that's doing the mailroom, his responsibility, you know, he cleans those bathrooms downstairs, the high volume ones, once in the middle of the day. So it's worked out great for me, because actually now I have 4 guys working on projects that can stay on projects. And I have one that's responsibility is doing this. So it's been very good for building things out. We aren't chasing packages all over, you know, anymore, so. Yes, it was a good idea, but it helped my department, probably as much as that. I wasn't really sacrificing.
I just make a statement, we talk about safety and risk management. You got a good point about you guys having to hustle down off the ladder and,
Yep.
you know, and Melissa's got her people running back and forth down the hallways.
Yeah.
You know, it's a,
Yeah. We jump
no,
off ladders.
but on a serious note, I mean, that is, if they're doing something and they have to be preoccupied to come down off the ladder and go back up, you know, you're looking for an accident to happen.
They get called, how that worked was they get called on. So basically they go outside and they call, they get dispatch, buildings and grounds, FedEx is at the door. Somebody's got to go let them in, right? Somebody's got to let them in, somebody's got to sign for packages, so they're back and forth all day. You know, then they bring the package up to your office because it needs to be delivered. You know, they got their hand truck, so now just one person, it's easier, he knows where things are. He works with Barb, he does a lot of the purchasing. We do a lot of purchasing, DPW does a lot of purchasing, so he kind of is in the loop all the time, and he knows when people are coming, and he has other duties besides just that. So it's work.
Thank you, man.
We got it.
Miranda, you ready for the hot seat?
Morning, how are you?
So which one you want to?
Why don't you state your need and then.
Okay. So basically, I'm here to ask if I can, well, fill my data collector position with a part-time, temporary, employee that has past worked in my department, for a little while. She left about a year ago, so I just wanna, I have a couple deadlines coming up. I don't have a clerk at this point, so I kind of just want to bring her back in that knows what she's doing. I don't really have to retrain just to get us through our deadlines through July 1st. It's not currently budgeted, but I've had so much breakage in the office with lack of staff that I have funds that are, you know, available. And then I'm also asking that we don't have an assessor anymore, so I just want to take the assessor off the staffing pattern for going forward, just so we're kind of up to date when it comes to my office.
So usually, positions are not on the staffing pattern if they're not budgeted. The reason that the data collector and the assessor are mistakenly still on the staffing pattern are because of the retirement of the past director happened at the end of the year. At that point, county assessing also went away and the towns took that back over. So it mistakenly never came off the staffing pattern. So when Miranda wanted to fill that position, Danielle mentioned it to me and I was like, I remembered that we did not budget for those 2 positions. But because it's on there and you do have the funding, the committee approves us to be able to use that data collector position just part-time temporarily. To help you get through your crunch time, plus being new, you don't need another obstacle, I wouldn't think. So, and then we can take both of those positions off the staffing pattern. Data collector when it's vacant after temporary, and then assessor can come off as well.
Dan,
Yeah, Melissa, you said they're on the staffing pattern, but they aren't budgeted, but you have the funding now. To me, that sounds kind of ridiculous.
Because of the breakage that she
Oh,
had.
just breakage.
We
You're-
had-
Yeah, no
No
director
either.
for 3 months, and then the count clerk we didn't have for a little bit, and
Well,
I don't have one now. so.
Okay, but now I thought the data collector, we got out of that business. What are we doing? Why do we need a data collector at the county level?
There are a lot of duties that, well, I don't say a lot, but there are some duties that this data collector does.
There's
Um,
programs that she knows that wasn't cross-trained between the department. So my goal in the next couple of months is to get her back in to finish those duties that have to be done. As well as
train to get somebody else when they come in into my open account clerk position. It's less,
So this really isn't, you're not using this person as a data collector, you're using her to cross-train her for another position. Because we don't do data collection.
Right, but there are other duties within that scope.
That are
that's job
underneath.
description
That falls under
that
that
would
title,
fall, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, she did more than just data collecting.
but she's not doing data collecting data.
Correct.
just parts of it. So the program side of
Did
things.
you have your hand up?
I was just gonna say that, I believe when we had the data collector before, she worked some on the county assessing, but she also worked something here, so there were duties she was covering years before. So it wasn't just like it was, she was on staff for the county assessing program in the other towns.
Yeah.
How long do you foresee needing this person?
No longer than 3 months. A
Yeah.
couple hours a week, nothing.
So my question is, the person that you have in mind, was it, and left, he or she, was that someone that left on their own, or was it somebody that was asked to employ?
Left over.
Took another position.
So there's no.
She's at Greenwich Town.
Pardon?
She's actually a Greenwich Town clerk.
Okay. I just didn't know if that's something. Because Marina might not have that information if it was somebody that.
Okay, so I look for a motion to allow her to fill the data collecting part-time.
I'll move it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Now, do you want to go ahead and take the assessor off or wait and do them both same time down the road?
I think we could do them at the same time. We're not gonna fill an assessing position. Just make
So
it
do you want,
easier.
do you want to mention the personnel now, or do you want to wait till you get ready to?
Like to wait.
Okay. Wait till you. Very good. Is there anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with canceling the Argyle, minus hiring another Argyle.
Is there anything else? New old business, anything else for government apps? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Right.
Let's call the Agriculture, Planning, Tourism, and Community Development Committee, to order. And, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of Monday?
Second.
Do we have a second? Dave, seconds, all in favor? Okay, so we're gonna go into the snowmobile trail changes for the 2024-2025 season. We can be here to do that. Would you like to come forward and sit up here? To answer questions. That sounds wonderful, thank you. My first time I've ever back in this. And can you say your name? Rebecca Botkin. Rebecca, welcome. Becky.
Will there be snow next year?
That's what I was wondering.
Thanks.
This came back from a foreman. It was sad through the whole state. It was really a bad,
We had a hell of a snow in a storm a week or two ago, so we're good.
unfortunately, late.
So it looks like you are applying for a grant. You want to share that?
Well, our phase one, which is changes to trails that we currently have. So Batten Kill, Salem area, we have 5 changes that are all at donor request for one reason or another. Hartford has 4 changes. One is a temporary one. I don't know Hartford's trail, like I know Batten Kill's trails. So we just need to go through the seeker. I think to get a negative seeker is what I was told. But I have, if you have any questions on that I can answer, I will try to answer.
Are we already the lead agency? Or do we have to do that?
We have.
Right, but
There'll be 2 resolutions.
Okay, so there will be resolutions to make us
Lead
lead.
agency and we'll get negative declaration.
Okay. But we're not doing that in this committee, we're doing it.
No, we're doing that full board.
Okay.
So at this point, it's total, this discussion.
Information.
It's discussion information. Make sure you agree with the secret thing on all those 1 through the 5 4.
Very good.
Well, I've got my metadata files for them, and a little note from Hartford saying that there was 2 changes. And I'm changing Form A and 4.
I've got Hartford, I've got C4, C4A, and S44A, and I've got C9, C9A, C9A, S96.
Okay, and I guess where I came up with 2 on C9, they're not near each other. One that we had to change because of a change on S96. And laying out the request, it was where Junction is. So we had to move.
That's
C9
fine.
Also,
So I just want to make sure the action's correct. I've got to change it.
okay.
Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, not on that, but on the matter of the Snowmobile Trail. You're aware that the Snowmobile Trail crosses from Saratoga County into Washington County over the old Dix Bridge. And you have your organization has a very large following and voice down in Albany. Is there any way you could help lobby the state to look into covering the cost of the inspection of that bridge? They force that onto this 2 counties. And it's
Okay.
getting to be a very large number where if it crosses over a state road, the state pays for the inspection. But since that's not crossing a state road, the state won't pay for that inspection, we have to. And I'm not looking, I don't think anybody else is, for the Snowmobile Club to cover anything, it's the lobby course. We're trying to get the state to cover that inspection. Do you remember how much that was, Brian?
It's 40,000, right? Yeah, this is the inspection.
It's quite, and we have to split it with Saratoga County, the cost.
I wasn't part of it.
Oh, no.
Dave was the big part of that.
But they listen
But I
to you,
can-
the senator, assemblyman, they all listen, and you have a very loud voice out there. If you could
Okay.
say that that is something that could impact us if that price got too high, that, so the state would look at it and maybe consider that worthy of them funding it. It would be very beneficial.
Okay,
Because the state trail, the Route 9 state trail crosses that
Right,
thing.
it's a state trail and they get registration money from
Bike trail,
snowmobilers,
yeah.
so.
So anyways, if
Yep.
you could do that for it.
I will try. I'm new at this, so do it again. Thank you.
Is there any other questions for Rebecca? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a
Good
good
luck.
Thank you. All right.
So before we go into broadband, I have a couple of quick others before I go down that deep dark hole of broadband. First thing I want to point out, I know we are all still digesting the state budget. A lot of changes in there, a lot of impact. One of the things for you to be aware of, we've been discussing for a very long time, the potential to get income from short-term rentals, from occupancy tax and sales tax. That did not make it. I think as we've previously discussed, the sticking point was the idea was to create a state registry on which all short-term rentals had to register. And the sticking point became the state wanted to put that cost onto the counties, and the counties did not want to absorb that cost for some reason. So it's been out there for 20 years. I'm assuming it will go back for further discussion and further revision, but that won't be happening this year. Another one I want to mention to you.
Laura,
Yep, sorry.
like city of Saratoga is gonna, maybe off Saratoga County, they're gonna make their short-term rentals register $1,000 a year license or whatever. That way they can at least track that some of them aren't under any of the Airbnb or some of that. Is that anything in Al's not here that the county can do here, so we actually are aware of, you know, who is short-term rental, who is?
We could, we've had, Warren County also sort of went down the road of creating a system and collecting occupancy taxes, et cetera. The reason that we've discussed in the past for not doing that is that the fees we would likely to be able to collect to manage that are the revenue was not going to be enough to justify the cost of setting that system up. But if the reason for wanting to set up a registry is more on the regulatory side, like we want to keep track of it as opposed to revenue generating, then it's something that we could think about. But we could, yes, set up our own registration system.
Well, I think that like they were looking at 1,000 up front just for a license, and then after that, they were gonna collect any taxes or fees or whatever. But,
We can look
you know,
at it.
I'm just saying that, you know, I know that Fort Ann is having a struggle, and I can see in the future around my lakes that there's probably gonna be issues coming up. Just trying to see what the options were out there.
If the committee would like me to, I can look around and see if I can identify other counties that have done something similar and see what their systems look like and how they do it. Happy to do
The
that.
state's not gonna do anything at this
No,
point.
it's not.
I believe Warren County does it as well.
Yes, yeah, they do.
So but I do know that from a county perspective, if we're gonna do it in the town for our local laws, we have the registered advanced fee. But that's the list, and we could supply to the county.
Well, I think that's something I'm going to assume the board is going to want to debate, because if we create a county-wide registry, that means every town is going to have to participate, which means every town is going to want to participate. So the question is, do you do it at the town level or do you do it at the county level?
Any other, Dan?
My only concern, Jay mentioned $1,000. Your short-term rentals in rural areas don't get big money. And $1,000 might be 10% of their revenue. And now that's a big number. Saratoga Springs, it works, and, you know, Lake George, if that would work, it'd mean nothing, but just be careful, you could be hurting the Airbnb, not Airbnb.
There are
short-term
some
rental.
that get several hundred.
I was gonna say,
Huh?
There are some. that
Big
get several
numbers.
hundred. There's a wide range. Some of them don't get much, but there are some that charge hundreds.
Well, but
And
there's the little ones you're gonna bump off to, that's all I'm saying.
You have to remember too that for Airbnbs, when they come in, having had one, they also, support local restaurants. the theater, different things in your town that could use that economic, recovery and income. So it's a domino effect, it does help your communities and more than just Airbnb. Not in all towns, but sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, but and to Dan's point, if you go someplace, you stay in a hotel, you pay an occupancy tax, you pay sales tax on it. So they're now, once they let their house out like that, as far as I'm concerned, their business.
Well, and that's fine, I'm just
So they should
saying,
be able to pass that on to the consumer.
the license is the part that impacts the
But
owner,
that's-
the landowner.
but
I
that's-
don't care what you do for fees for like that, what you're saying, but $1,000 is all, that number scares me to have a registry.
Your Airbnb charges, that's a percentage that they charge, so you're already.
With this,
But you have a lot of people that aren't even on Airbnb, that are just doing private, and you don't know that, so, Fort Ian's point, because they've had it, but I can also, so like I say, see it around my lakes, all of a sudden I got lake people calling me up and say, hey, there's 25 people up in this camp, what's going on? Well, it's turned itself into an Airbnb there, and they're having parties all night long.
Or just rentals, they're actually renting out their property rather than,
I
because
mean,
an
what you
Airbnb
need
is very.
I mean, I see what you're saying.
Still a short-term rental.
No, I-
Under the umbrella of
but
short-term rental.
There's oversight on Airbnb.
Right.
A
There's
rental,
no
like what
oversight.
What Jay's talking about, they've been renting camps for years. And it's become a way to pay their property taxes and the way they look at it. And that's what you're referring to, individuals renting their camps.
Well, right, I mean, they just don't come under, like Airbnb will protect you a little bit on some of your issues. Some of the other ones don't, but they're still doing the same thing, you know? Just, it's it's saying though, it's a very complicated issue.
It's gonna hit all our towns.
And it's not a matter, and I wish that one of the meetings we had here, for town over that. It's not fair, we try to put the program together. If you're renting and you meet the status on Airbnb, just because you don't advertise through Airbnb or the other two that may be out there, but you're doing the same thing. It's business.
Right, it is business.
It's business. And,
I think that the interesting is now we throw Airbnb out there as a thing,
right.
but it's been going on forever. I
Right.
mean, you look at all of your lakes and the homeowner stays in the camp, 2 weeks and rents it out the rest of the time. And that's been going on for as long as I've been. It's just, it wasn't termed Airbnb.
Right, no, it should be termed short-term rental. That's how it should be.
Airbnb is one of the platforms.
That's just one of the brand names.
Anyways.
Okay, well, I will, see if I can identify some models and we can continue discussion about it. Another item to be aware of that affects the budget, I just passed out the New York State Pro Housing Communities Program. The reason that I bring this to your attention is, as you know, the governor has an agenda to increase housing across the state. So the Pro Housing Communities Program actually came out last year, and it's basically a voluntary program that communities can join. And by the way, this is meant for local municipalities, not counties, in which you can take proactive steps to encouraging housing development, ultimately possibly some funding goes with that, et cetera. The change this year, as you know, CFA time is coming. Portals typically open in May. Most of the funding that can be applied for in the CFA portal will now require that the applying community become a pro housing community. So this affects things like Restore New York, the DRIs, New York Main Street, a lot of the state funding that it has not been released yet in terms of exactly which ones, but the indication is that most of them likely will. So from our standpoint, there are two ways to handle this. As you can see from this sheet, it's a quick summary. Option one, there is an assumption in this program that everybody in the world has zoning. And as you all know, most of our communities do not. So I asked the question of them, what do you do with communities that don't have zoning? And the response was that basically, if you, especially in rural communities, and you're not seeing huge amounts of growth, you can, as a local municipality, make a resolution that basically says, yes, we are pro-housing. And you've got to submit information about your local permits, et cetera, et cetera. And they want a statement that says, our local municipality does not have zoning and this is why. So it's up to each of your communities as to what you want to do, but I'd suggest that you think about it, because if you think that on a local level, you're likely to be applying for any of that CFA funding, you might be running into that. As of right now, Argyle and the town and village of Greenwich are already in the process of declaring pro-housing communities. It's up to each of you as to, and there is information on this website, the New York State Homes and Community Renewal, about what you need to do to move forward with that. But I'd be thinking about it now, because if you have any intent to be looking at any CFA funding, you might want to help with this. Any questions?
Yeah, just a comment. I find it very intriguing that as we have the short-term rentals going on, they're taking actual housing for people to stay in out of the market, only if you come in as a visitor and stay there for 2 weeks out of the year, whatever the case may be. That we come out with programs and want to do just the opposite of that. You know, that's taking it away, which affects our school system, anything else, and you come out and you want us to build more. We're actually, your legislation has allowed us to turn those places all into businesses and not most people live. So it's just ironic to me that we can have two different ends of the spectrum working against each other in the local legislature.
It's interesting, Sam, because I've been thinking a lot about the housing in Salem. And I was going up down the streets and looking at how many single elderly are living in their homes because there's no place for them to go. Okay, so you take in Salem, there's probably 15 houses that could be holding families and provide some housing. Yet they're actually being almost forced to live in their homes because there really is no place to go. The waiting lists are so long for senior citizens.
But
So
that's a different end of it.
That's still housing.
That's like a third
It's like a third version.
Yeah.
So you have to build more long-term facilities for those people to move into, so those houses become available. Short-term rental, the opposite. You're buying a house, you're throwing people out, but you're putting people in there for 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, maybe 4 nights at a time, which nobody can live in because those houses just are being rented out for sure.
It's a complex problem.
Government created problem.
Okay, just one other quick thing on the budget. The dairy processing capacity funds was funded at 24 million. I think I've mentioned before, this is going to be managed by the Farm Food Growth Fund Accelerator, which is an HVAC program. So eligible, the funding is going to be for the storage and processing infrastructure for dairy. Also some transportation. So for example, if you've got a bulk tank for transport and need the tank replaced, that could potentially be done through these funds. Any dairy farm of any size in good standing with Ag and Markets can apply. Also kind of paired with that, the Ag and Markets food system infrastructure grant should be opening in a couple of weeks. That's a 14 million statewide. The only exclusions for that are meat, poultry, and I think fiber. There's 1 or 2 other things, but other than that, if you are within the agricultural food system distribution, it's for equipment, you can get between $10,000 to $100,000 with no match. If you're looking at infrastructure investment, it's between 100,000 to 3 million with a 50% match. So again, that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Questions? Okay. Done with budget. Just a quick update on the septic system program. I came to the committee, I think either end of last year or beginning of this year. We were informed by DEC that eligibility to obtain funding to replace an existing out of compliance septic system was going to be increased by a number of water bodies. The water bodies are identified as having some form of pollution, and therefore DEC is trying to provide assistance in replacing septic systems that are within 250 feet of these water bodies. So what you'll see on this list, it is the same list that I handed out a few months ago. They had provided us with their estimated number of septic systems within 250 feet of these identified water bodies. There were the ones that are highlighted, they came up, they didn't think there were any parcels on them, so we reviewed them here, real property. We came up with there were existing parcels on some of these water bodies. So the only two that were taken off of the list is Pine Lake and Lapland Lake in Dresden. Every other water body on here has eligible parcels that can be applied for, up to 50% of the cost, up to $10,000 in funding. So if you have anybody in your community that might be interested in this, county administration is taking the applications for these. And we are informed that we should have the final contract with the new funding by the end of the week.
Any questions for Laura?
How many totally have been replaced?
I have an idea and I don't remember what it is. I do know that there are 2 waiting to be processed based on this new eligibility. But we haven't in any way advertised it as of yet, and we don't have the state contract yet.
Seems like there's 20 or 30 done already.
Yeah, and I gave you those numbers and I just don't remember what this.
On the White Creek one, and it shows the town of White Creek, but it says upland and tributaries.
Yep.
Are we talking White Creek that runs the same?
So when you look at the PWL is the priority water body list ID.
Okay.
As you know, water bodies travel a long way. So the DEC divides them into segments. These ID segments are specific sections of that water body. So this is basically going to be a portion of the White Creek tributary that happens to be within the town of White Creek. We can look at, because again, this isn't exact. Some of these may cross over a little bit into another municipality. But if you want us to check, we can check if you have an address that you want us to get. But it's not the entire water body, it's a specific segment of it.
And I think it's gotta be 2 different creeks. I mean, how does White Creek?
That's what it says. It says White Creek and Little White Creek. That's what it says.
Minor tributaries.
Yeah, but they're both in White Creek.
They are. The Little White Creek and the White Creek are both White Creek.
But we have a White Creek that runs through.
But they're only talking about the part that's in White Creek. Doesn't matter if they're connected. It's just that part.
If she proposed the trick about that.
It's how come?
And if you want to get it
there's
right,
not
it's at the creek. So that way you know.
Laura, how come there's nothing on the Hudson?
Because the Hudson, well, so these are basically new eligible water bodies. The Hudson is not considered a contaminated, the upper section of the Hudson up here is not on the DEC list of impaired water bodies.
Now, you say up here, so in Easton, it's not,
Here, no.
so.
There
even
may
though
be
they-
other sections down.
Even though they have septic systems that you can't meet code, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. It's only in the designated areas.
It's
Okay.
whatever DEC says is on their list. We don't get to change that.
Bob can tell you how DEC has parameters that none of us adults can understand or go by.
Which explains a lot.
Thank you. My point exactly.
Me so far today. I get to read it, I mean, I get to print them out.
All right, broadband. So I am doing everybody a favor here because I could natter on about what we have historically done over the past couple of years for hours. So in an effort to organize my thoughts and give you some sort of a coherent timeline as to how we got where we are, I put together a quick outline of where we've come from. So, as most of you recall, in 2015, the only communities that had internet was largely supplied by Spectrum, and it was almost exclusively in the villages. There were very few other areas that had what would be considered internet. So the New York Broadband for All program came, which was a grant to the providers who bid on specific areas based on census tract mapping that the FCC did. Based on those awards, we rolled forward, that program was deployed. There was about 25 million that went to Slick, Verizon, and Hudson Valley Wireless. In addition to that, at the time, Charter and Time Warner Cable went through a merger, and as part of the state allowing that merger to happen, they requested that Charter supply an additional 144,000 new passings statewide at their cost. So the impact to Washington County was that Spectrum deployed about 4,000 new passings in the county. That combined with that funding that came from Broadband for All got us 3630 passings from Slick, 1123 from Verizon, and about 400 from Hudson Valley Wireless. Slick went over and above and delivered about 1,700 additional passings that they were not paid for. So the end result of that is that from that period for the Broadband for All program, we got about 9,000 new passings. So our next problem was, how do we figure out who's left? Because the way that the bidding worked was based on a census block theory that says if one household in the census block is served, we consider the entire census block served. So it created what I call the Swiss cheese effect. We didn't have any large areas that remained without service. What we ended up with was a remote home here, a pocket of a few homes there, which makes it really hard to determine who's really got service and who hasn't. So we retained in 2022 ECSig Technologies to actually drive around the county, map where the existing infrastructure was, and basically to do an analysis of those homes who remained unserved. Based on that, which was completed in January of 2023, we identified about 1,400 households that remained unserved. At about the same time, the FCC, recognizing that that census block issue was creating major problems all across the country, they undertook a new mapping effort that required all of the providers, instead of on a census block basis, to household by household or parcel by parcel to identify what they could and couldn't serve. So there was still a reliance on the providers to correctly do this. And because some providers overestimated and some underestimated, it's become a long-term effort of data checking. So in order to move forward to get the remaining unserved across the entire country, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act announced the BEAD funding, which, I mean, there were many of us who heard about this over the past couple of years because it was supposed to be $65 billion nationwide that was going to go to each of the states. Well, actually only 42 billion was allocated to the states. There was some money that was allocated to other federal broadband programs. And the allocation to the states was based on that final FCC mapping and how many unserved there was determined to be in each state. So New York State got $664 million added to that pocket by the state budget and some other funding sources. So the state pocket of our fund of money is now $1 billion. So that's actively out there happening while we are still pursuing who is really unserved remained in our county. The other thing to be aware of is that the definitions of speed thresholds have also now changed. At the time of broadband for all, speed thresholds were lower. So even some of the passings that were achieved in broadband for all now don't qualify because you don't meet the current speed thresholds. So we applied in January of 2023 for $1 million in congressionally directed funding, from Congresswoman Stefanik. That was awarded. The problem with that application is we requested this funding from Congresswoman Stefanik. The Congress gets to decide what pot of money they take it out of. It got put in a federal program called USDA Reconnect, which is a very complicated program, and we couldn't get any of the wireline providers, which would basically be Spectrum, Verizon, and Slick, to agree to participate with this. Nobody wanted to deal with the complexities of that program. Hudson Valley Wireless was the only one that would. So we proceeded with working with Reconnect to get licensed fixed wireless service to about 500 households that we identified as most suited, that Hudson Valley Wireless could deliver the required threshold of speeds. So that has been moving on, except it's not really moving because USDA is still doing the environmental review, which consists of doing environmental review of a tower climb. So nothing is, it's equipment being hung on a tower. So that review has been out there for 4 months. We still do not have a state contract, which means that technically these addresses are all still considered unserved, but we're still moving forward trying to get that state contract. I said this. Meanwhile, the FCC, as part of this mapping process, released last June an initial release of data, which was there after all of the back and forth with the providers, which is their first iteration, what they think is unserved. We acquired that data and did a comparison of, and I've sat with most of you to go through this. We looked at the award data, we looked at all kinds of data to compare it with what the FCC was saying was unserved, and discovered that Verizon was claiming the 334 addresses that they had been paid to serve, primarily in the towns of White Creek, Jackson, and Cambridge. They were claiming to the FCC that they could not serve. So we identified those addresses, sent them to the Connect All office, asked the Connect All office to work with Verizon to get those addresses claimed. Verizon declined to do that. They said that the FCC map was accurate. The state is now in a position that they have to account to the FCC as part of this BEAD funding for every single unserved address. So what that would have meant is a provider could have asked for money to serve these addresses that are in fact already served. We know they're served because we sent people out with cameras to take photographs of the line wires. So in March of this year, the Connect All office opened a challenge portal in order to further refine that FCC data and allow the local municipalities to put their knowledge on top of what the FCC already knew. And we formally challenged those addresses. So my hope is that those addresses are going to come off of the eligible list because, again, as far as we're concerned, they're already served. So after this review was done, I guess I missed the part. We put out that an RFP in April of 2023. Based on the information that we had at the time, we estimated, factoring out those 500 Verizon Hudson Valley Wireless addresses that were going to be served by that USDA grant, that we still had about 900 remaining without service. The county had discussed setting aside approximately 4 million, it started at 6 or 7, but it kept getting whittled away, to use that for the RFP that went, yeah, I see you. To fund those 900 addresses. The problem was that, we divided the county up into 14 service areas. I didn't think we would have enough money to get all of them, but we were very far off. The 4 million that we set aside, at that time, I think I estimated that it was probably gonna take about 10 million to get it all done. So we continued refining data. We did not make any specific awards because we're trying to figure out a way to move forward. What has now happened, with the data refining, that 900 has actually now gone up to about 1,200. Some of that is because some of those Verizon addresses got put back in, not all of them, but some of them. We had, during the RFP process, indicated that we were probably going to be going back and forth, requesting the providers that bid, have them update their proposals. The only two providers that we got proposals from were Slick and Spectrum. Verizon did not bid. So we have asked for updated proposals based on this refined data. The Connect All office, as of about 2 weeks ago, has funded a program that is intended specifically for counties that have pursued moving forward on their own and are potentially setting aside some county funding to move forward with getting addresses. We have the opportunity to put an application into the Connect All office. They've set aside $50 million. We are one of a very small handful of counties that are eligible for this. Essentially, they're giving us the opportunity. We as the county have to be the applicant. We can either manage the contracts with the providers ourselves, or the awards can go directly to the providers. It is an intense application. It's due on May 10th because the idea is that you're pretty ready to go. The Regional Planning Board has funding set aside. They are paying for the same engineering firm that helped us with the challenge process to help us write the application. We are estimating, we've got one proposal back. I'm still waiting for the one from Spectrum. The other thing to be aware of is that in conversations with both of them, I am told that the possibility of any one provider trying to cover the entire county is almost nil, because there are going to be a number of addresses that even if they are 100% paid to serve, their operating costs will be so high that they will lose money even if they're paid to pull wire to these homes. So we're trying to identify out the ones that are just not ever going to be practical to serve by fiber. The estimate at this point, and again, I don't have final numbers back, but I'm expecting it at this point to take somewhere between 15 to 17 million to get most of the county covered. I think there's still going to be maybe 100, maybe 200 until I get the bids back. I don't know. Addresses that we just practically cannot get funded by fiber. So what I am requesting is that we put the application in. The application requires a 25% match. None of the bids that I've seen from either Spectrum or Slick are proposing much more than about a 12% match. So the implication is that we would put in the rest of the money to come up with the 25% match. I also want to set aside some funding to create a county fund that would allocate an amount per household that is not ever going to get fiber to reimburse them for like the one-time cost to either get something like Starlink or possibly licensed fixed wireless if they can get a signal. It's not just Hudson Valley Wireless, AT&T and Verizon both have some licensed fixed wireless capability. So we currently have 3.6 million set aside in the ARPA funding. I would like to be able to go forward to propose that as a combination of match what we might need to manage the contract administration. I am hoping that Connect All will do that, but if they won't, I don't have the capacity to do it. We'd have to have an engineering firm do it. I'm waiting for a proposal from a couple of engineering firms to see what that would cost. This is going to go very quick. This application is due May 10th, and they're gonna tell us in June. So this is not gonna be a long drawn out process. Again, I think our chances of getting this funding are very high because there's only one other county that I'm aware of. There might be a couple of counties that have gone as far down this process as we have.
So if they actually gave us 16 million, we need 4 million. As a match.
Right, a little bit less than 4 million, because again, I want to set aside some funding for that county fund. They will give us points. The more match we are willing to put in, the better the chances that we're going to get funded. And they clearly said that you will definitely get points for providing more match.
And this drop dead date falls within our realm of having to have all our ARPA money organized and out to go out the door, right?
Organized part's the easy part, the out the door part.
Right,
is-
but if we will have an answer as to whether this is gonna happen before the organized part is due.
Well, it's my intention to at least get the broadband number into the report that's due in 9 days. So that we have a placeholder, even if the number ends in June.
But you said it was in June.
I
Thought they
have a
moved
report
it.
due in 9 days. It's my intention to put it
No, I
on
thought
that
they
report.
moved it, okay.
So there is, part of the reason we're doing this meeting now at 1 o'clock is that there is a webinar that, again, they just opened this portal yesterday. Everything has to be in by the 10th. The webinar in which I get to ask questions is at 1:30 today. One of the questions that I asked is what is the proposed funds flow? Because again, we need to get that ARPA money spent. So if the contract is with the providers, we need to have it organized, like who pays, like, are we remitting something to the state to then remit to the providers? Do we get bills directly from the providers? I will hopefully get that answer this afternoon.
So if we move forward, if this actually worked, we'd be done with talking about broadband for eternity.
No, then you'll be hearing me whine about actually getting it built.
No, but I mean.
But yes.
So, because we've been working on this for at least 12 years. 16, it seems like it's been.
Brian, and when you look at this and you look at if they change the speeds, okay, it's a ever moving target. Technology.
Well, I get that, but you gotta have a line to ever change anything anyway.
Well,
That's
the
line's been-
preferred, the targeted, so the BEAD funding is requiring that 95% of all new households get fiber. That is not going to work in New York. Think about the Adirondacks. I think I mentioned before that we did an analysis was done up in Franklin County that says where you have less than 6 households per mile, the average deployment cost is now $47,000 per passing. $47,000. I'm estimating that for these 1,200 that we need to get covered, it's gonna end up being probably 14-ish per passing. And I don't believe that connect all, even $1 billion, remember the 500 million for broadband for all was supposed to get broadband for everybody.
Right.
Now we've got another billion to add to that, and it right now looks like that's not even gonna be able to cover it, because there are just some areas that are just, they're just gonna be too ridiculously expensive to get.
So you're looking for a resolution to move forward and try to
I
finish
would
this up.
like permission to apply for this
I'll
funding
move it.
and match it.
Second.
Okay. And Dan, did you have a question?
Several. First, I'd like to thank you for the short version. So you fed me so much that I really, I'm not sure I can
That's
answer
why I
all the
left it
questions,
for you
but
in
my,
writing.
my first question for you is, you commented, and I think the number was 200 that will never be able to be served. Is that what you said?
I don't know yet. Until I get the final bids back, it could be.
Well,
100,
there
it
was
could
a
be-
number that you used on the one that you suggested that we cover the cost of one-time Starlink setup. What was that number?
So if I estimate up to 200 houses, I don't think it's gonna be that many, and if we set aside 1,000, and we have to create a program, like, I want
Yeah,
evidence
what
that
was
they.
the numbers of the program? That's all I'm trying to come up with. How
So-
much to set aside?
That would be 200,000. If you estimated
200,000,
1,000 per
okay.
household, 200 households, it would be 200.
And we wouldn't own it when we're done, right? It would be,
We'd be reimbursing a household.
And we'd be done.
And it'd be-
and what would that do? Pay for everything? For them
The
to
reason
get?
that I think 1,000 is the right number, if you use Starlink as an example, the equipment costs about $600. And if you have the capacity to install it on your own roof, you can do it. But if you're a little old lady, you're probably not climbing on your roof.
I'm not a little.
And you're gonna have to hire somebody to do it. And the average cost of those installs is probably about $400.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to get these numbers in mind. And when we're done, we're not gonna have any other commitment to that Starlink program.
Right. And I'm
And
not
some
even-
of these 200 might choose not to do it anyway.
Right, and I'm not proposing that we just, right, I'm saying you contract with the provider, provide us evidence that you have signed up, and then we reimburse you for that. And the other, I still have to make sure that that will work in terms of the broadband office's requirements. I do know that their process is going to be, so let's quickly talk about what happens if we don't do this. We could do nothing. The state will eventually be required to take care of this. They will have until the year 2030 to get it done. They're going to put out an RFP in very large, like they're trying to divide counties into maybe 2 sections, 3 at the most. Put out a bid that says providers must agree to cover every single household in that geography. And yet there's going to be funding limitations. So if nobody bids, we're gonna sit on it for a while, and then they're gonna put out a second RFP allowing satellite. Because we have this problem that we have that Swiss cheese issue, you're gonna have households that are still reasonable to get fiber to, not very far away from households that aren't reasonable. So a provider isn't gonna bid on that whole geography because it's not gonna be cost effective for us. In my opinion, the net result is we're gonna end up with a whole lot more satellite than we want.
Okay, so this is to keep Dan sharp, because if we do this, and let's say we get the job done, whatever you wanna call it. 2 years from now, somebody comes in, gonna build a house in Hebron, and they can't get satellite. Can they come to the county and say, I want that $1,000?
We're 100% slick, use Easton.
Okay, I don't care, use Easton, well, we've got the same problem in Easton.
Yeah, we still have
Does
to
that-
create the program. We would want to put a limitation in there either until the funds run out or a timeline, deadline, or both.
So you can do that, you
Yeah.
can limit out, handing out money to
Or-
taxpayers.
Or it's all gone. If it's gone, we're
What's
done.
gone is gone, right?
We're
There's a
done.
deadline that has to be out the door.
Right, and if it's not done by then, it's over.
I'm just trying to keep Dan with the program.
To use the ARPA funds that are proposed, there is a deadline to get them out the door.
Or we lose them.
That's my question. You got 4 million ARPA funds set aside for this.
3, 5, 8, 7,
Yeah,
2.
we're under 3.
And,
Ish.
well, there's just to make a comment, there's people with Starlink that like it so much better than the fiber, that maybe we ought to just give everybody money to put in Starlink, so.
Do we collect the interest off that? Does that stay in that fund? 3.58, so I mean, it's growing, right?
Don't
It's
take my
been 12
comment.
years since it's started, 3 years.
So yes, and it's earning interest.
Okay,
And it's earning a decent amount currently because it's invested.
I'm ready to vote.
What are our temporal constraints going to be on this? You know, we've got people right now that are frustrated, throwing up their arms and wanting to start like Jay says. Are we gonna say all of a sudden, next June, okay, from now on, anybody gets Starlink, we're gonna pay for it, but all you guys that had to do it before get squat because you were outgoing.
So remember, the purpose of the FCC mapping, what it does is it looks up the parcel ID. And you can all do this. You can look on that website and it will tell you what providers are saying they can provide at what level of service. So it could be that AT&T is saying they can provide you with licensed fixed wireless. It could be that Verizon is saying they have fiber. So if there is any kind of an option that meets the threshold speeds, they're not eligible for any other money because they're already taken care of. So the only ones that would be eligible for this are those who are identified as not currently served and not currently funded to be served.
I think further on what he just asked though, if this went through and if there was a group that came in that did an area, even if they already got Starlink, that would still take care of them too, right?
Okay, so take the vacant lot thing. If somebody comes and builds a house, right now, they're not eligible for any of this funding. It has to be, one of the questionable things is like remote hunting camps. We looked at what parcels have utilities going to them and what parcels don't have utilities. If they don't have utilities, we took them off the list because they can't plug a computer in. So if it's a vacant parcel, a remote hunting camp, it's not gonna be eligible for any of this funding. If somebody builds a household on it later, it's their issue.
But I was going with the places that are buying Starlink. They're already in their home, they bought Starlink, but they're in an underserved area. They can actually still get Spectrum or Slick or whoever comes at that point.
If Spectrum or Slick can service them,
That's-
sure, they could change.
And that won't impact what our resolution.
Well, as far as the person that, if that goes by their door and they don't take it, I'm not giving them $1,000 for the Starlink that they took before it came.
Well,
I guess that's where I was going.
They got one that's in one of these areas, and they've solved their problem now, because they're not gonna wait 5 years to run their business. They've solved their problem now and bought Starlink. And then next year, we say, all right, now we're gonna give everybody $1,000 to get Starlink. Are we gonna go back and pick those people up or say the heck with it because you did it?
I say we refer that to Dan when the time comes.
Well, I think though we've already done that with a lot of people. How many,
So,
I had satellite for years, paid for it on pocket for years, and now I have Slick. I'm not going back to get $1,000 because I bought it for myself for 10 years.
Well, no, but you're in a served area.
No.
I'm talking about these unserved areas.
right, so I'm gonna throw Dan under the bus here. And I'm gonna say that,
Wait,
so
poor Dan.
what I have is a concept as to how this will work. I've still gotta run it by Office of Connect All. And I would want to sit down with Dan and think about all of the contingencies, like, again, we don't wanna reimburse somebody who got Starlink last year. What we wanna do is we wanna reimburse somebody who, based on all the programs are coming out over the next 5 years, don't have a hope of getting fiber. So we have to find a way to articulate that and to create a set of rules that doesn't put us on the hook for something that we didn't intend to be on hook.
So do you need a motion to go forward with looking at the?
We got a motion on the table, right?
We just need to vote.
Can somebody refresh me, what's the resolution?
Apply for the grant.
Apply for the grant
And match.
agree to do the match.
Up to how much?
3.5.
3,587,082.
I'd like to suggest-
No, but you're saying, you're saving some, you're not all, all of us acres.
Call the question.
We're going to 3.58 is what you want to go up to that for a match?
They're right.
Okay.
I would like to have 4, but
So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's.
Well, that was easy.
I'm done. I'm done.
Should have done it a half hour ago.
Yes.
Is there any other business to come to the committee? No?
I'll shoot him if they do.
Then we're adjourned. Thank you.